Well, hello investors and traders. I'm LA Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we're asking ourselves just one question, and that is, what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones? I do the show 4 times a week. Every Monday through Thursday is broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube, and it's under the channel LA Little. If you want to subscribe, reach up, hit the button. Anytime content is pushed, you'll get a notification and you can stay up to date with what's going on. As far as what happened today, you got a little bit of a push to the upside. Nothing major, but a little bounce, right? The NDX was leading a big push in Facebook off the earnings last night, got the NDX going. That helped pull everything else. We also had oil up today. Here it is here, 6% almost. So oil breaking out. We'll look at that chart. We'll use the USO and look at it. But oil trying to push higher. The big story today, though, is they say lightning doesn't strike twice. Well, sometimes it does. The DAX. 3 weeks ago, the DAX told us it was going to try to go higher. Last night, it told us the same thing, and I even pointed it out last night and said more than likely, it's not going, it just doesn't look like it's going to be able to do it, given the setup on the chart. So even though it had gotten over the swing point, the euro was kind of suggesting that it wasn't going to make it and that the euro was going to actually try to push higher. That's what happened. That's what happened to the DAX. We'll take a look at that chart because that kind of changes the picture again, and we'll see if the lightning strike actually carries through. Hang Seng was down. We actually had pressure again in the big Chinese economy. That chart, we need to take a look at that chart as well. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with anything else we find. So let's get started here. And we'll do it in Europe. These markets are the ones that are kind of driving things. So if you look at what had happened, right, we had the ABCD structure. That ABCD structure was set up, right, to try to take this higher. It broke. You got to get another bar up. It doesn't do it. I usually use 2 bars, right? Show me 2 bars, and then I'll believe you. Well, it gets over it, doesn't stay, gives it right back up. Volume expands on the way back down. This thing is a failure on the breakout attempt. It was a suspect breakout, and it fails. So now what are you doing? Well, you're coming back into the big bar. So tomorrow is the big test here. This push back into this bar, right? Top of that bar is right here. You get the exact numbers for you. 9656, you close it at 9639, so you go over, you try to break out, you fail, you come back, volume's expanding. It's less volume, but you're into the bar. If you stay in the bar, another bar, then I would expect this thing's going to go down and try to break out this low. So DAX not looking so hot to me, and matter of fact looking like a problem child right now. That would be the target. You get under that, you can go after the lows again. So that's the DAX. If you look at the CAC, same setup, just a little bit stronger though. But you try to get over that high yesterday, you give it back up today, and not as weak, but did not hold the breakout. The big story in my mind is over here in Shanghai. Shanghai going after the lows. Now Shanghai has been on just a roller coaster down. Hasn't been able to get any kind of bounce going. If you look at it here on the weekly, underneath swing point lows, so it's broken them all out now. It's breaking multiple swing point lows on the weekly, and it looks like it's going to do it on the monthly. Multiple swing point breaks on multiple time frames typically carry. They don't come back and retrace immediately, which is the more probable case in most cases. They carry, and they carry for 2 to 3 bars on the longest time frame, and we're talking about the monthly. So as you carry 2 to 3 bars, right, doesn't mean you have to go down. You can go sideways, but you don't typically go right back up. And so the Chinese market, the Shanghai, is back into this swing point high, and this is the first time back to get into it. Right, it almost got to it last time, but it stopped just short. It's the natural place for people to put exposure back on before. That high, if you go back and check it, 28.26. You got down to 28.51, so you didn't quite get to it. Now you're trying to blow it out. 26.38 is the low. Over here it's 26.77. Unless they get back over that, that's going to be two problems. One, you fell on the retest and try to regenerate higher. You fell it. And it makes sense because what are you doing? You're doing a huge ABCD structure to take this thing all the way back to the lows. That's Shanghai. Shanghai is about 9% of the world economy in terms of GDP. And so, Shanghai is a big deal. So moving back over to the U.S. markets, 4 days, actually it's 5 now, 5 days sideways, nothing, right? Percent up, percent down, percent up, percent down, 0.5%. Sitting in the middle now. Which way is it going to break? Well, you got a couple problems, right? You got volume at the lows. You can't get over, at least not so far, you can't get over the B point of the ABCD structure. It's a small one, but you still can't get over it. If it were to trigger, it would take you up into or almost to that swing point low. Still hasn't got going though. It's got to get over this and carry, right? It's got to carry. Hasn't done it yet. Right now you're in limbo land and you're just hanging there. The problem with that, of course, is the longer you hang in limbo land, the greater the probability that limbo land is going to turn into a continuation of whatever the heck was going on. And in this case, that's down. So that ABCD structure to the downside gets stronger, or at least the case gets stronger. And actually, it's from here. It's not from up there. On the weekly, it's from up there. And so it carries to about here. If it breaks down, let's look at the weekly while we're here. We're getting at the end of the month now, so you can actually do some of these projections. If you're looking at it on the weekly, right, the swing point lows here, it doesn't look like it's going to close under it, so it's going to hold. But it did test it on greater volume, right, on this time frame, on the weekly time frame. And so the expectation here is that this thing will try to come down again. Now, the problem here is that at this point, you actually are setting up the potential for an ABCD structure. You've got a higher high on the next bar. That means you can get going to the downside. And of course, that on a 1-to-1 is a big number. That's on the weekly. If you go to the monthly's still holding. Those are the August lows. Here's the October lows. Volume down there. I expect it's going to try to get there sooner or later. Speaking of trying to get there, let's go to the Russell, which has been the weak link. Russell doing the same thing sideways, but the Russell 2 bars into the high volume bar now and hanging there. The Russell looks like it's getting ready to break down. If I go over to the weekly, there's an ABCD. Well, actually, it's not an ABCD structure yet. 102.20. Yeah, it is by a penny. So you got an ABCD structure potential to the downside. And if you go to the monthly, Russell is not going to recapture that swing point low. That means you're going to get a break on the monthly. This is going to a sideways trend. So a trend transition on one of the major indexes. But it doesn't stop there. The financials, go to the monthly. Trend transition setting up here as well. And if you go to the industrials on the monthly, if we pull that one up and look at it, almost a trend transition. And right now it's under it. It possibly can save, but right now it is breaking. And finally, if you look at the transports, again, on the monthly, the transports had already broken once before, a month back. Now they're breaking the next one. Transports going to bearish on the long-term time frame. Folks, when you get enough of these going, let me log in here. When you get enough of these going to bearish or even trend transitioning on the long-term time frame, you're typically going to get the rest of them to follow. That's the way this works. And so if we pop over and we look at the general market sector and qualified trends, and you pull them up here and take a look at them, this is starting to break down. It's going to have one of them up here change trend, and you're going to have 2 to 3 down here. Well, actually, you've already got 2. You're going to get 2 more. That's 4 out of the 9. That's enough to continue to put pressure up here, which means this market is anywhere but out of the woods at this point. So, what do we got? We kind of got a mess, right? Let's go look at the oil market. And of course, the reason we have to look at the oil market is the oil market is driving so many of the others, although the lockstep moves are starting to dissipate a little bit, and that's primarily because this has been moving up. But if you look at the oil market, right, I'm on a daily chart, and this one's actually tracking fairly well so we can look at it. You got this move up, right? That's an ABCD structure. It's almost done, right? It gets over the swing point high, so you get a break here that transitions on this time frame trend. But if you look at oil in a longer term time frame, if we just look at the weekly, you know, you have a hugely oversold. You got a nice reversal with a hammer reversal, right? That's a good sign. Push up. I expect because of that daily and because of all the pressures on this, you're going to get a lot of gyrations, but you've got a lot of people on the wrong side of this trade. And of course, when that happens, you can actually get a big move to the downside, to the upside on a short squeeze, and that's what's taking place here. Where could this move to? Well, it can go to the swing point low, which is up in this area. And so you could get a squeeze up as high as there. That's another 10% on the way up. And of course, this thing is moving 5% a day almost every day. Certainly moving 5% intraday, 7%, 5%, 2 on that one, 5 here, 5 there. Go back to this one, you got about 3, 8, huge numbers, day in, day out. That's the oil market. And finally, let's go look at the euro, because the European markets, I think, are going to be key tomorrow. Euro moving back up. It's inside the Draghi bar. Probably going to stay there, but it's probably going to work its way to the top because now people are starting to think the Fed's not going to do anything. You know, that's the way they're reading the Fed statement from yesterday. So you can expect a test of these highs again. And remember, this thing is testing with volume as it's hitting those highs. If this starts to break higher, that's going to put some huge pressure on European markets. Pressure on the European markets are not going to help the U.S. markets. That's where we sit tonight. So at this point, it looks like you probably have a top in this market. I mean, it's kind of hard not to say that. And Sunday night, I'll be picking up on that thought, and we'll be chatting about it then. So join me Sunday. Have a great day tomorrow. And if you haven't subscribed or you haven't got around to subscribing, you should come check us out. Hit the Get Started button. Affordable and valuable. Take care and good night.